One of the simplest and maybe the dirtiest jobs that you can do is to replace the inner tube and tire. On the back side of your tire, you will find 5 lug nuts that need to be removed. Using a 13mm wrench, turning counterclockwise, loosen and remove them in a star pattern. And you're going to want to, when you tighten, use the same star pattern to put them back together. Once you've removed the lug nuts, inspect your lock washers. This is a good time to replace the lock washers with a fresh one because they will flatten out over time and lose their effectiveness. Put them aside in a safe place. I usually do it up on the floorboards so they don't get lost. Now it's time to separate the 2 halves of the rim. This one hasn't been on here terribly long, so it came apart very easily. A lot of times you will have to use a flat screwdriver and twist in between the rim and the tire to get the rim to pop loose from the bead. One of the halves will come out easily. The other one has the inner tube 90-degree stem coming through it. Carefully remove that and then go around the inside and the outside of the rim and clean it off. Get it ready for reassembly. When it's time to reassemble the tire and rim with the tube, check on the sidewall of the tire and see if there is a directional arrow. In the case of the 3.5 by 10 Continental Zippy 1s, there is an arrow for the front wheel and an arrow for the rear wheel. So on a Zippy 1, the direction of the rear wheel and the direction of the front wheel are not the same. So depending on which tire you're replacing, pay attention to the arrow. You will notice on your split rim that there are 2 different thicknesses. The wider is going to go to the inside. Now there is one exception for this, and that would be on a GS160, Vespa GS160 or an SS180, where the halves are equal sizes. But everything else that I can think of is going to have the offset split on a 10-inch rim. So taking the inner tube first, we're going to put it into the rim so that the stem is facing outward, and if you're, say we're going to put this on the front, that the stem will face outward with the direction of the arrow corresponding there. Tuck the inner tube into place all the way around the tire, and once you have it in place, we're just going to give it a small shot of air to inflate it. That way the inner tube won't be pinched between the halves of the rim when you reassemble. Just add a small amount of air, just enough to get the tire out of the way so when you reassemble the halves that the inner tube won't get pinched. Now, beginning with the back half, take the 90-degree stem and start it through the hole that's on the inside of the rim. It comes through the notch that's on the inside diameter of the rim and just tuck it snugly into place. On the corresponding half of the rim, you will find the notch for the valve stem. Line that up with the other half of the rim. Now, these are ready to squeeze together, and the lugs will come through the back half of the rim, and you'll be ready to reinstall the lug nut. Now, starting in one spot, I like to start right at the valve stem. Holding the two halves of the rim together in that spot, just by hand, start a lug there. Now, moving in the star pattern, we're going to squeeze it together, holding with one hand and with the other starting the lug nut. Now you've got the two hands in place. You can start to tighten these two halves together, not getting them all the way tight, just snug. That makes the rest of the lugs very accessible to complete your assembly. Continuing to move in the star pattern. Start and tighten that one. And then the final two. And the final nut, tightening in the star pattern. Get it good and snug and secure. Now it's time to re-inflate the tire. If I'm doing the rear of the spare, I put about 30 pounds in. And then check it with your gauge. Now it's time, now check the tire pressure with the gauge. Just a little bit low. I'll give it another shot and it's ready to be put on. Went a little bit over. This gauge allows to bleed a little air out of it. There, right at 30 pounds. Put the valve stem cap back on, and the tire's ready to go on the scooter. So most of the stuff we've covered today can be taken care of with the onboard toolkit that your scooter, a new scooter, will provide you. However, spend a couple extra bucks, go out, get yourself a decent set of screwdrivers and a small metric toolkit. You'll find that you're much better off that way. We've just covered the basics for the manual shift scooters today. I'm Bob Hedstrom from Scooterville in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We look forward to bringing you more tech tips in the future.